You think you can bury me like yesterday's trash, Richard? Watch this old bird fly. The words cut through the champagne-soaked air of the Benson family mansion like a blade through silk. Evelyn Thompson stands in the center of the grand hall, all 65 years of her packed into 5 feet 7 inches of pure New York steel. Her silver locks are pulled back tight, her brown eyes sharp enough to slice through lies at 50 paces. 30 years with the FBI taught her how to read a room, and right now, this room is about to explode. She holds up a small recorder, her finger hovering over the play button. The crowd of 200 guests freezes. Crystal glasses pause mid-sip. Richard Benson, her son-in-law, goes pale as winter snow. Then she presses play. Richard's voice floods the speakers, talking about offshore accounts, naming shell companies, laughing about manipulating Maya, Eve's daughter. The gasps ripple through the crowd like a wave hitting shore. But Eve isn't done. She pulls out her phone, swipes once, and the projector screen behind her flickers to life. Video footage. Richard in a hotel room, with someone who looks exactly like Maya, but younger, harder. It's Sophia, Maya's half-sister, a secret the family buried 25 years ago. The room erupts into chaos. FBI agents burst through the mahogany doors, their badges catching the chandelier light. Richard lunges forward, but 2 agents already have him. The metal cuffs click around his wrists with a sound that echoes off the vaulted ceiling. His mother, Margaret Benson, crumples into a chair, her perfect composure shattered like dropped china. Eve stands there, arms crossed, watching it all unfold. A slight smile plays at the corner of her mouth. The smile of someone who just checkmated a king. But how did we get here? How did a retired FBI agent take down a millionaire's empire in less than 3 weeks? Let's rewind. 3 weeks earlier, Eve was in her Queen's brownstone, the one she bought with her pension money after leaving the bureau. She was watering her tomato plants on the fire escape, enjoying the September afternoon heat rising off the pavement below. The city hummed its usual symphony. Car horns, distant sirens, kids playing basketball 2 blocks over. Her phone rang. Maya's name flashed on the screen. "Mom, I need you." Maya's voice was thin, stretched tight like a guitar string about to snap. "Can you come to dinner tonight? At Richard's parents' house? Please. I can't do this alone." Eve heard everything Maya wasn't saying, the tremor beneath the words, the weight of something breaking. "I'll be there in 2 hours, baby girl." Eve said it calm, steady, but her mind was already moving, already cataloging possibilities. She arrived at the Connecticut estate just before sunset. The Benson mansion sat on 5 acres of manicured lawn, all white columns and old money arrogance. Eve parked her 10-year-old Honda Civic between a Mercedes and a Porsche. She walked up the stone steps in her simple black dress and sensible heels, carrying a bottle of wine that cost $35 at the corner store. The moment she stepped inside, she felt it. That particular rot that comes from wealth mixed with cruelty. Margaret Benson greeted her at the door with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Evelyn, how lovely. We're so glad Maya's family could join us." The emphasis on family dripped with condescension, as if Eve's Brooklyn roots were something scraped off the bottom of a designer shoe. Eve smiled back, showing teeth. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Margaret." The dining room was all crystal and candlelight, the kind of setup that cost more than most people's rent. 20 guests sat around a table that could seat an army. Richard held court at the head, his blonde hair perfectly styled, his smile perfect, his suit probably worth $3,000. Maya sat beside him, looking small and tired, her light brown skin seeming to fade against the white linens. Eve took a seat 3 chairs down, watching, listening. That's when she heard it. Richard leaned toward the man next to him, his voice low but not low enough. "I swear, my wife is becoming dead weight. Can't even manage a simple dinner party without calling her mommy for backup." His laugh was sharp, cruel. "Soon as I get control of her trust fund, I'm done playing house with this lazy baggage." The man beside him chuckled. "And that custody battle?" "Already got my lawyers on it," Richard said. kid deserves better than a mother who can't keep her act together. Eve's hand tightened around her wine glass. The stem nearly snapped. She looked at Maya across the table. Her daughter was staring at her plate, pushing food around, unaware her husband was planning to destroy her 12 feet away. Eve saw herself 30 years ago, a younger woman at a different table, with a different man who smiled in public and struck in private. Not this time, Eve thought. Not my daughter. She excused herself to the bathroom. On the way, she passed Richard's study. The door was cracked open. She glanced down the hall, no one watching. She slipped inside for exactly 90 seconds, long enough to place a listening device under his desk, long enough to memorize the layout, long enough to notice the locked filing cabinet in the corner. When she returned to dinner, Richard was talking about his latest business venture, real estate development in the Bronx. Eve smiled and nodded, playing the role of harmless retired mother-in-law. But her mind was 3 moves ahead, building a case brick by brick. She had done this hundreds of times before. White-collar crime, money laundering, the wealthy men who thought they were untouchable. Richard caught her eye across the table and raised his glass. To family, he said, his smile sharp as a knife. Eve raised her glass back. To family, she echoed. The game had begun. The rain comes down in sheets the night Eve starts following Richard. It's the kind of New York rain that turns the city into a noir film, all slick streets and neon reflections bleeding into puddles. She sits in her Honda 3 cars back, watching Richard's black BMW pull out of a midtown parking garage. Her trench coat smells like old coffee and determination. Her hands grip the steering wheel the way they used to grip her service weapon. Steady, ready. This is muscle memory from 1,000 stakeouts, except this time it's personal. This time it's her daughter's life on the line. Richard drives to the Upper East Side, a boutique hotel with a discreet entrance. Eve parks across the street, pulls out her camera with the telephoto lens she swore she'd never need again. Through the rain-streaked window, she watches him enter. 20 minutes later, a woman arrives. Young, confident stride, designer heels that click even through the storm. Eve snaps photo after photo. The woman's face is familiar in a way that makes Eve's stomach twist. She has Maya's nose, Maya's jawline, but there's something harder in her eyes, something calculating. Back home in Queens, Eve descends into her basement, her so-called retirement hobby space, 3 monitors. An old server she keeps running despite her daughter's jokes about electricity bills. Stacks of hard drives labeled with case numbers from decades past. The chair creaks when she sits down, and for a moment she feels every one of her 65 years. But then her fingers hit the keyboard and she's 25 again. Sharp, fast, unstoppable. She pulls up the phone, records she accessed through contacts who owe her favors. The kind of contacts who don't ask questions. Richard's number lights up her screen like a Christmas tree. Calls to offshore accounts, encrypted messaging apps, and texts. So many texts to one number. Eve clicks open the messages. Her heart drops. Can't wait to see you tonight. The plaza, usual room. Bring that thing you do with your tongue, baby. The response comes from a number saved as S. Miss you already. Did you talk to your lawyer about the custody angle? We need Maya out of the picture before she realizes what's happening. Richard's reply makes Eve's blood run cold. Don't worry. Once I drain her trust fund and get full custody of the kid, she'll be too broke and broken to fight back. Mom's already working on making her look unstable. Those herbal teas are doing wonders. Eve takes a screenshot, then another. Her hands are shaking now, but not from fear, from rage. She digs deeper into S's profile. Sofia Castellano, 28, works in real estate, went to NYU, and her mother's maiden name. Eve recognizes it immediately. No. Eve pulls out a box from under her workbench, old files, things she promised herself she'd burn years ago. She flips through yellowed papers until she finds it. A private investigator's report from 1998. Her ex-husband's affair with a woman named Lucia Castellano. Birth certificate attached. Baby girl, named Sophia. Maya's father had another child, a daughter he abandoned before she was born, a half-sister Maya never knew existed. Eve's vision blurs. Tears stream down her face, hot and angry. The photo in her hand shows a younger version of herself, smiling next to a man who would betray her. History isn't just repeating, it's mocking her. She talks to her reflection in the dark monitor screen. Damn, girl, you're 65 and still playing detective. Retirement my ass. Her laugh comes out bitter, broken, but she wipes her eyes and straightens her spine. Maya won't suffer what I did, not while I'm still breathing. 2 days later, Eve meets Maya at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, the kind of place with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. Maya arrives 15 minutes late, looking thinner than she did at dinner. Her eyes have dark circles underneath, her smile forced. Baby, you look exhausted, Eve says, reaching across the table to take her daughter's hand. I'm fine, Mom, just busy. Maya's voice is flat, distant. Richard's been working late a lot, big project. I'm managing the house and taking care of Jamie, mostly by myself, but it's fine. Everything's fine. Eve recognizes that tone, the one that says nothing is fine. Is Richard treating you right, sweetheart? You know you can tell me anything. Maya pulls her hand back. Why would you ask that? Richard's been nothing but supportive. She blinks too fast, defensive. His mother says, you might be getting confused in your old age, maybe seeing things that aren't there. The words hit like a slap. Margaret's poison, already working its way into Maya's mind. Eve leans forward, lowering her voice. Maya, listen to me. I spent 30 years reading people, catching liars, and my instincts are screaming right now. She pauses, measuring her words carefully. Has Richard been giving you anything to help you sleep? Any specialties? Maya's eyes flicker. Confusion, then defensiveness again. Margaret makes me this herbal blend. It helps with my anxiety. She says I've been too stressed lately. Eve's jaw tightens. She wants to flip the table, wants to drag Maya out of here right now, but she knows better. Push too hard and Maya will run straight back to Richard's arms. Instead, Eve reaches out again, takes both of Maya's hands. She holds them tight. Baby girl, blood don't make family, strength does. And you're stronger than you know. When you're ready to see the truth, I'll be right here, always. Something shifts in Maya's eyes. Just for a second, a crack in the armor. That night, Eve goes back to her basement. She pulls up Richard's financial records, using access codes she's kept active through old FBI channels, shell companies, dummy corporations, money flowing from legitimate real estate deals into offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. It's textbook money laundering, the kind of case she built dozens of times in her career. But this one is different. This one has her grandson's future on the line, her daughter's sanity, her family's survival. Eve creates a new folder on her desktop, labels it Operation Rescue. She starts compiling everything. Photos, financial records, text messages, the family secret about Sophia. The evidence is piling up, but she needs more. She needs Richard to hang himself with his own rope. And she knows exactly how to make that happen. The Benson Foundation Charity Gala is all white tablecloths and fake smiles. 500 guests in designer gowns and $1,000 suits, writing checks to look generous while hoarding their real wealth offshore. Eve stands near the bar in a sleek burgundy suit she borrowed from a friend, wearing a honey blonde wig that makes her look 10 years younger. Dark lipstick, gold earrings. She's unrecognizable. She's been here 2 hours and nobody's noticed her. That's exactly how she wants it. Eve moves through the crowd like smoke, carrying a champagne flute she hasn't touched. She keeps her head down, her ears open. Old habits from undercover work. Blend in. Listen. Wait for the target to forget you're human. Near the silent auction table, she spots them. Margaret and Richard, heads bent together in conversation. Eve positions herself behind a marble column, close enough to hear every word. Margaret's voice is ice wrapped in silk. Once the divorce is finalized, will claim Maya was mentally unfit to manage the business shares. I already have the psychiatric evaluation ready. Doctor, Harrison owes me favors. He'll sign whatever I need. Richard nods, swirling his scotch. And the trust fund? Frozen due to her incapacity. Margaret's smile is sharp enough to cut glass. We'll petition the court to name you conservator. Every penny she inherited, every share of the business Eve helped her build, all of it becomes yours to manage, permanently. Eve's hands ball into fists. Her nails dig crescents into her palms. Breathe, she tells herself. Stay calm. Get the evidence. The lights dim. A spotlight hits the stage. Richard walks up to give a speech, his smile practiced and perfect. He raises his glass high. To the Benson Foundation, he begins. His voice carries across the ballroom. To family legacy. To pure bloodlines that built this city. To preserving what matters most in a world that's forgotten the value of tradition. The crowd applauds. Eve feels sick. The dog whistle isn't even subtle. Pure bloodlines. It's everything Margaret has whispered about Maya for years. Not pure enough. Not right enough. Too much Brooklyn. Too much melanine. Eve's eyes track to the corner where Sophia stands, wearing a silver dress that hugs curves Eve didn't notice before. Sophia's hand rests on her stomach, just for a moment. A subtle, protective gesture. Then she catches Richard's eye across the room and smiles. Oh God, Eve's stomach drops. She's pregnant. That night, back in her basement, Eve can't sit still. She paces between the monitors, phone pressed to her ear. Her old partner Marcus picks up on the third ring. Marcus, it's Eve. Her voice cracks. I need to talk to someone who gets it. Eve? Damn, woman, it's been 3 years. What's wrong? She tells him everything. The whole twisted mess. When she finishes, she's crying, angry tears that she wipes away with the back of her hand. I outlived drug lords and corrupt politicians, Marcus. Buried my enemies and danced on their graves. But I can't stop my own daughter from suffering the same garbage I went through 30 years ago. Marcus is quiet for a long moment. Then he says gently, You're not the same woman who let it happen to you, Eve. You're the woman who learned how to fight back. Teach Maya that. His words settle something in her chest. Yeah, you're right. 3 days later, Maya collapses. Richard calls Eve from the hospital, his voice dripping with false concern. She just fainted at lunch. They're running tests, but the doctors think it's stress and exhaustion. Eve arrives at the hospital within the hour. Maya is pale against the white sheets, an IV in her arm. She looks small, fragile, nothing like the strong woman Eve raised. What happened, baby? Eve asks, taking her hand. I don't know. Maya's words slur slightly. I've just been so tired lately. Can't think straight. Richard says maybe I need to see someone, for my mental health. Warning bells scream in Eve's head. She waits until Richard leaves to get coffee, then she moves fast. She swaps Maya's blood sample with a fresh vial, slipping the original into her purse. An old contact in the lab owes her a favor, the kind that doesn't go through official channels. The results come back 36 hours later. Benzodiazepines, low dose but consistent, enough to cause confusion, fatigue, memory problems. Not enough to kill, just enough to make someone look unstable. Eve stares at the report, rage building like a thunderstorm. These wasps think they're slick? Honey, I took down cartels before breakfast. She calls Maya. We need to talk, now. They meet at Eve's house this time. Safe territory. Maya arrives looking worse than before, her hands shaking as she holds her coffee cup. Mom, Richard scheduled a therapy appointment for me, with his family's psychiatrist. He says you've been filling my head with paranoid ideas, that maybe you're getting senile and I'm feeding into your delusions. There it is, the gaslighting, textbook manipulation. Eve sits beside her daughter on the couch, takes both her hands. Maya, look at me. Really look at me. Do I seem senile to you? Maya's eyes well with tears. No, But Richard says, "Richard is lying, baby girl." Eve's voice is firm but gentle, and I can prove it. She pulls out the lab report. "You've been drugged for weeks, maybe months. Margaret's specialty? It's loaded with sedatives." Maya stares at the paper, her hands trembling harder now. "That's impossible. She wouldn't. They wouldn't." "They would. They are." Eve squeezes her hands. "Listen to me. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not imagining things. You are being systematically poisoned and manipulated by people who want to steal everything you've built, everything we've built together." Something breaks in Maya's face. The dam that's been holding back months of doubt and confusion. She sobs, collapsing against Eve's shoulder. "I thought I was losing my mind." "No, sweetheart, you're finding it." Eve holds her tight, "and we're gonna get you out of this, I promise." But across town, Richard is in his office, staring at his phone. Something's wrong. Apps are running in the background he doesn't recognize. Files have been accessed. He picks up the landline and calls his mother. "I think we have a problem," he says. "I think the old woman is onto us." Margaret's response is immediate and cold. Then we move up the timeline. Tomorrow, before she can do anything else. The trap is closing. But Eve isn't the one caught inside. The grainy footage flickers on Eve's monitor. 1997. A younger version of herself, badge clipped to her belt, kicking down a door in a Harlem tenement. Her voice echoes through the recording, sharp and clear. "Justice don't care about color. It cares about crooks." The screen shows handcuffed men being led out, stacks of cash on tables, a money laundering operation that stretched from Harlem to the Bronx. Eve remembers the adrenaline, the victory, and then she remembers what came after. She pauses the video on a face in the background, a young man in an expensive suit, talking to the lieutenant, clean-cut, blonde, smiling that same perfect smile. Richard Benson, 25 years younger, but unmistakable. Eve's hands shake as she pulls up the old case files. There it is in black and white. Confidential informant B-17. Richard Benson sold information for immunity and cash. But he didn't just sell information about the operation. He sold out her partner's location. Detective Marcus Williams. Eve's eyes blur, reading his name. Marcus was staking at a warehouse when Richard tipped off the crew. They were waiting for him. The shootout lasted 4 minutes. Marcus took 3 bullets. He survived but lost his leg and his career. And Richard walked away clean, protected, rewarded. Eve closes her laptop and grabs her car keys. She drives through the city in silence, her jaw tight. The cemetery in Queens is empty this time of day, just rows of headstones and the sound of wind through the trees. She stands in front of Marcus Williams' grave. He died 5 years ago, heart attack. But Eve always knew the job killed him long before his heart gave out. The rain starts falling, soft at first, then harder. It mixes with the tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I didn't know. I should have looked deeper." She touches the cold granite. "But I know now, and I'm going to make this right. For you, for Maya, for every person he's destroyed." The rain soaks through her coat, but she doesn't move. This isn't just about protecting her daughter anymore. This is about settling a debt 2 decades overdue. That night, Eve notices the black SUV parked across from her brownstone. It's been there for 3 hours. She recognizes a tail when she sees one. Richard knows she's digging, and he's getting nervous. Good. Let him sweat. The next morning, Eve drives to the grocery store. The SUV follows. She takes a left on Atlantic Avenue. They follow. She speeds up, weaving through traffic. They stay close. Her heart pounds, but her hands are steady on the wheel. She makes a sudden right into a parking garage. The SUV follows her in. Eve drives up 3 levels, then parks and gets out. She walks calmly to the stairwell. Behind her, she hears car doors slam. Heavy footsteps. But Eve isn't running. She's walking down. By the time the goons reach the 3rd level, she's already exiting on the ground floor. Her Honda is still parked upstairs. Her neighbor's Camry, which she borrowed that morning, is waiting on the street. She drives past the garage entrance just as the two men emerge, confused and angry. Eve allows herself a small smile. Amateurs. Back home, she knocks on her neighbor's door. Lorraine opens it, eyebrow raised. "You bring back my car in one piece?" "Better than one piece. I lost 2 idiots trying to tail me." Eve grins. "You still got that bourbon you've been bragging about?" Lorraine, a retired cop with silver hair and a sharp tongue, laughs and waves her inside. "Girl, you're gonna get yourself killed playing detective at your age." "Our age," Eve corrects. "And I'm not playing." She fills Lorraine in over drinks. When she finishes, Lorraine is silent for a long moment. "You need backup," Lorraine finally says. "Real backup. Not just bourbon and war stories." Eve nods. "I need someone watching Maya, making sure she's safe. Can you do that?" Lorraine raises her glass. "For you, I'd take a bullet. For Maya, I'd take 2. 2 days later, Margaret summons Eve to dinner at the mansion. A command performance disguised as an invitation. Eve accepts. Time to see what they're planning. The dining room feels colder than before. Margaret sits at the head of the table, Richard to her right. Maya isn't there. Eve's stomach tightens, but she keeps her face neutral. "Evelyn," Margaret's voice drips with condescension. "We need to discuss your interference in our family matters. Your street smarts may have served you well in your former profession, but you're out of your depth here." Eve takes a sip of water, meeting Margaret's eyes. "Street smarts kept me alive for 30 years in the FBI. What kept you alive, Margaret? Your husband's money?" The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Richard leans forward. "You need to back off, Evelyn. Stop filling Maya's head with paranoid fantasies. Stop trying to turn her against her family." "Her family?" Eve's voice is quiet but deadly. "I am her family. Blood and bone. You're just a mistake she's about to correct." The stare down lasts 5 seconds. Eve doesn't blink, doesn't flinch. Richard looks away first. That night, Eve cracks Richard's financial system 1 layer deeper. What she finds makes her blood run cold. Money flowing into Maya's nonprofit. The organization Eve helped her build to support single mothers in Brooklyn. Money coming in from shell companies, going out to legitimate projects. But the paper trail is designed to frame Maya. If the FBI investigates Richard's laundering scheme, the evidence points straight to her daughter. Maya's signature on forms she probably never read. Her name on accounts she probably never opened. Richard is building a case to send Maya to prison while he walks free. Again, Eve stares at her screen, rage and fear warring in her chest. She could go through official channels, call in favors from her old bureau contacts, but that means risking Maya getting caught in the crossfire. It means trusting a system that let Richard walk free 25 years ago. Or she could go rogue. Gather the evidence herself, build an airtight case, control the narrative. She thinks about her mother, her grandmother, generations of black women who fought systems designed to break them, who survived by being smarter, tougher, more relentless than anyone expected. Eve opens a new file on her desktop, labels it Endgame. "No man tears down my bloodline without a fight." She cracks her knuckles and starts typing. Richard wants to play dirty? Fine. But he's playing against someone who wrote the playbook. Maya's hands tremble as she holds her phone to her ear. She called Eve 10 minutes ago, unable to speak through the sobs. Now she's on Eve's rooftop in Queens, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the Manhattan skyline across the river. Eve climbs up through the fire escape, carrying 2 mugs of tea. Real tea, not Margaret's poison. She sits beside her daughter without a word. Sometimes silence is the only language that fits. Finally, Maya speaks. Her voice is raw, broken. "I heard them tonight. Richard and Sophia. They were in his office and I was supposed to be asleep." She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. "They were talking about the baby. About how, once it's born, I'm expendable." Those were Richard's exact words. Expendable. Eve's jaw tightens, but she stays quiet. Lets Maya get it all out. He said I'm too damaged now, too unstable, that he'll get full custody of Jamie and start fresh with Sophia and their new baby. A clean slate. Maya's laugh is bitter, painful. My husband and my half-sister. Planning my erasure like I'm nothing, like I never mattered at all. Eve sets down her tea and pulls Maya into her arms. Her daughter collapses against her, sobbing like she hasn't sobbed since she was 6 years old, and scraped her knee on the playground. Eve holds her tight, one hand stroking her hair. Baby girl, listen to me. Eve's voice is steady, strong. I know this pain. I lived it. Your father made me feel like nothing too. Like I was too loud, too black, too much. He tried to erase me piece by piece, until I almost forgot who I was. Maya pulls back, looking at her mother's face. How did you survive it? Eve smiles, sad but fierce. I remembered that his opinion of me didn't define my worth. I remembered I was a Thompson woman. We don't break. We bend. We bruise. We bleed. But we don't break. She wipes Maya's tears with her thumb. You are not expendable. You are not nothing. You are everything. And we're going to make sure Richard learns that lesson the hard way. The city lights twinkle below them. Millions of lives, millions of stories, all fighting to survive in their own ways. Maya leans her head on Eve's shoulder. Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me. Eve kisses the top of her head. Never. Not while I'm breathing. The next day, Richard shows up at Eve's door. No warning, no phone call. He pushes past her when she opens it, his face red with rage. 2 men in suits wait on the sidewalk. Security. Muscle. Richard throws a folder on her kitchen table. Papers scatter across the surface. Commitment papers. A petition to have Eve evaluated for mental competency. Signatures from doctors she's never met. Testimony claiming she's paranoid, delusional, a danger to herself and others. You're going to sign yourself in voluntarily, Richard says, his voice dripping venom. You're going to stop interfering in my marriage, and you're going to leave my family alone. He steps closer, invading her space. Old lady, stay out of my business. Eve doesn't back down. She looks him dead in the eye. Or what? Richard shoves her. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to intimidate. Hard enough to make most 65-year-old women stumble. Eve isn't most women. She grabs his wrist mid-shove, pivots her hip, and uses his own momentum against him. Classic judo throw. Richard hits the floor hard, the wind knocked out of him. Eve's knee is on his chest before he can process what happened, her hand gripping his collar. FBI taught me more than paperwork, punk. Her voice is ice cold. You put your hands on me again and I'll break more than your pride. Richard's eyes are wide with shock and fear. The security guys start moving toward the door, but Eve calls out without looking. You boys want federal assault charges? Keep coming. They freeze. Eve releases Richard and steps back. He scrambles to his feet, his perfect hair messed up, his expensive suit wrinkled. Get out of my house and tell your mother the next move is mine. Richard grabs the papers and runs. Literally runs. Eve watches through the window as he gets into his car and speeds away. Her hands shake when she closes the door. Not from fear, from adrenaline and something else. Doubt. She's 65. Her back aches. Her knees crack when she stands too fast. What if she's too old for this fight? What if she can't protect Maya after all? But then her phone buzzes. A text from Maya. Thank you for believing in me. I love you, Mom. Eve's doubts dissolve. She's not too old. She's exactly the right age. Old enough to know better. Old enough to fight smarter. That night, an unknown number calls her phone. Eve almost doesn't answer, but something makes her pick up. It's Sophia. Her voice is quiet, scared. We need to talk. I need your help. They meet at a diner in Astoria 2 hours later. Sophia sits across from Eve, her hand resting protectively on her belly. She's 4 months along, showing just slightly. Margaret knows, Sophia says without preamble. about me being Maya's half-sister. She's known for years. She found out when Richard and I first started dating. She uses it to control me, threatens to expose the whole thing if I don't play along. Eve studies her. Why tell me this now? Because I'm tired of being a pawn. Sophia's eyes fill with tears. I thought Richard loved me. I thought we were building something real. But he doesn't love anyone. He just uses people until they're empty. She wipes her eyes. I don't want my baby growing up with a monster for a father. Eve sits back, processing. This changes things. Family reunions ain't supposed to be this messed up, she mutters. Sophia laughs despite herself. No, they're not. Eve leans forward. If you help me take him down, I'll make sure you and your baby are protected. But you have to give me everything. Passwords, documents, recordings, everything. Sophia nods. I have access to his offshore accounts, his real books. She pulls a flash drive from her purse. It's all here. Eve takes it like it's made of gold. This is it. The final piece. Back in her basement, Eve's war room buzzes with activity. 3 monitors glow in the darkness. Files download. Spreadsheets populate. Financial records that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. Shell companies in Delaware. Accounts in the Cayman Islands. Money flowing through Maya's nonprofit like a river of poison. But now Eve has the source. The proof. The evidence that will bury Richard and Margaret both. She works through the night, building the case. Every transaction documented. Every lie exposed. Every crime cataloged. By dawn, she has a dossier that would take down a small country. And she's ready to use it. The diner smells like burnt coffee and apple pie. Eve sits across from Agent Frank Russo, her old mentor from the Bureau. He's 72 now, gray beard and reading glasses, but his eyes are still sharp as knives. He slides a folder across the table. Everything you need on the Benson family's connections. Judges, cops, city officials. They've got their hands in half of Connecticut. Eve flips through the pages, her jaw tight. How deep does this go? Deep enough that you need to be careful. Frank takes a bite of pie. But not so deep that we can't take them down. He grins. Remember the Gambino case? We pulled that off with half the evidence you've got now. Eve laughs despite herself. That was 30 years ago, Frank. We didn't have smartphones tracking our every move back then. Yeah, but we also didn't have smartphones to track their every move either. Frank points his fork at her. Technology cuts both ways, kid. Use it. 2 days later, Eve stands on a dock in Greenwich Harbor. The Benson family yacht is hosting a private party. 50 guests, champagne and caviar. The kind of wealth that thinks it's untouchable. Eve's wearing a catering uniform, a wireless earpiece hidden under her hair. She carries a tray of glasses onto the boat, blending into the background like she's done 1,000 times before. Nobody looks twice at the help. She plants the listening device under the bar. State-of-the-art tech, courtesy of Frank's contacts. It picks up everything within 30 feet. 20 minutes in, she hears Margaret's voice, clear as day. The woman is weak, Margaret says, her tone dripping contempt. A few more months of the herbal blend and she'll be docile enough to sign anything. Richard gets the money, I get control of the non-profit, and Maya gets a nice quiet room somewhere far away. Another woman laughs. You're wicked, Margaret. I'm practical. Margaret's voice moves closer to the bar. Sentiment is for poor people. Eve's hand tightens on her tray. She's got it. Recorded confession. Audio proof of conspiracy and assault. She turns to leave, but Margaret's security chief is blocking the exit. He's looking at his phone, then at her face. Recognition dawns in his eyes. The catering company didn't send anyone matching her description. Eve doesn't wait. She drops the tray and runs. Glass shatters. People scream. She bolts across the deck. The security chief right behind her. The yacht is moving. Waves crashing against the hull. Eve vaults over the railing and hits the water hard. The cold shocks her system, but she swims. 20 yards to the dock. Her heart pounds like a war drum. She can hear shouting behind her, but she doesn't look back. She climbs onto the dock, soaking wet, and runs to her car. Her hands shake as she drives away. But the recording device is safe in her pocket, and that's all that matters. That weekend, Eve babysits her grandson Jamie. He's 7 years old, all energy and questions. They're in Eve's living room, playing a game she made up on the spot. Okay, spy man, your mission is to find the hidden treasure without being detected. Eve points to various hiding spots around the room. Use your skills. Be quiet. Be smart. Jamie tiptoes across the floor, his face serious with concentration. He finds the chocolate bar she hid behind the couch and pumps his fist in victory. Eve kneels down beside him, ruffling his hair. You know why you're so good at this, kiddo? Because I'm sneaky? Jamie grins. Because strength runs in our veins. Eve taps his chest gently. Your mom's strong. I'm strong. And you're strong too. Nobody can take that away from us. Remember that always. Jamie hugs her tight. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, baby. 3 days later, everything falls apart. Eve is in her basement when she hears the knock on her door. Loud, authoritative. She knows that knock. She opens the door to find 2 police officers, their faces stern. Evelyn Thompson? One of them holds up a warrant. You're under arrest for breaking and entering and theft of private property. What? Eve's mind races. Richard found the bug. They cuff her hands behind her back, read her rights, put her in the back of the squad car. Neighbors watch from their windows. Eve keeps her head high even as humiliation burns through her chest. At the station, they process her like any other criminal. Fingerprints, mugshot, a holding cell that smells like desperation and cheap disinfectant. Frank shows up 2 hours later, flashing his credentials and calling in favors. They release Eve on her own recognizance. She walks out into the parking lot, her wrists sore from the cuffs. Benson's got pull, Frank says, lighting a cigarette. But we've got justice. And justice always wins in the long game. Eve rubs her wrists. He's trying to discredit me. Make me look like a crazy old woman with a vendetta. Then we move faster. Frank blows smoke into the night air. How close are you to having everything? Close. Eve's voice is steel. Real close. That night, Maya calls. Mom, I did it. I stood up to him. Eve sits up straight. What happened? He was yelling at me, calling me useless, saying he was taking Jamie whether I liked it or not. Maya's voice shakes, but there's pride underneath, and I slapped him, right across the face. I told him I was done being his punching bag. Eve's heart swells. That's my girl. That's my strong, fierce girl. He looked shocked, Mom, like he couldn't believe I fought back. Maya laughs, a sound of disbelief and triumph. It felt good. The next day, Eve sits at her computer, a wicked smile on her face. She's hacked Richard's email. It took 3 hours, but she's in, and what she finds is gold. Selfies, dozens of them. Richard posing shirtless in mirrors. Richard in his underwear. Richard with captions like "Still got it at 45" and "Alpha male energy." Eve forwards every single one to his corporate board, to his business partners, to the charity foundation's mailing list. She types a simple message. Thought you'd want to see what leadership looks like. She hits send and mutters to herself. Revenge served with a side of schadenfreude. But the celebration is short-lived. Her phone rings an hour later. It's Maya, crying hysterically. He's filing for emergency custody. He has doctors saying I'm mentally unfit. He's taking Jamie tomorrow, Mom. Tomorrow. Eve's blood turns to ice. Then fire. We're out of time. She stands up, her mind already moving into endgame mode. It's happening now. Tonight. Get Jamie, and come to my house. Don't tell Richard. Don't tell anyone. Just come. The war is here, and Eve is ready. Eve arrives at the Benson mansion, leaning on a cane she doesn't need, reading glasses perched on her nose, her shoulders hunched just slightly. She's playing the part of a defeated old woman, broken by the weight of Richard's accusations and the humiliation of her arrest. Margaret greets her at the door with a smile that barely hides her victory. "How gracious of you to accept our invitation, Evelyn. We thought it was time to clear the air. For Maya's sake. For little Jamie's sake." "Of course." Eve's voice is soft, weak. "Family is everything." The grand hall is set up for the summit. 40 people. Richard's business associates. Margaret's society friends. Maya's distant relatives. All gathered under the crystal chandeliers to witness what they think will be Eve's final surrender. But hidden throughout the room are 6 cameras. Tiny, professional grade, positioned to capture every angle, every word, every confession that's about to spill out. Eve takes her seat slowly, making a show of her age. Richard watches from across the room, his smile smug. He thinks he's won. Margaret stands beside him, regal and cold. Sophia sits in the corner, her hand on her belly, her eyes avoiding everyone. Before the meeting starts, Eve asks to speak with Maya privately. They step into the library, away from the cameras, away from the crowd. Maya's face is pale, her eyes red from crying. "Mom, I'm scared. What if this doesn't work? What if he takes Jamie?" Eve takes both her daughter's hands. "Baby girl, look at me. Really look at me." She waits until Maya meets her eyes. "You are not weak. You are not broken. You survived a monster for years and you're still standing. That takes more strength than most people have in their entire lives." Maya's tears fall freely now. "I don't know if I can do this." "You don't have to do it alone." Eve pulls her into a fierce hug. "We're Thompson women. We've been fighting and surviving and thriving since before this country wanted to admit we were human." She pulls back, holding Maya's face in her hands. "Today, we end this cycle. Today, we take back our power." Maya nods, wiping her eyes. Okay, I'm ready." They return to the hall. Everyone takes their seats. Margaret stands at the head of the table, beginning her prepared speech about family unity and moving forward. But Richard interrupts her. "Before we discuss reconciliation, I think everyone needs to know the truth about Evelyn Thompson." He stands, his voice carrying across the room. "She's not the hero she pretends to be." Eve's heart races, but her face stays neutral. "What are you talking about, Richard?" "In 1998, you killed a man. Shot him 3 times during a raid." Richard pulls out a folder, waving it dramatically. "You murdered someone in cold blood, and the FBI covered it up. And now you have the audacity to judge me?" The room erupts in whispers, gasps, but Eve just sits there, calm as a lake before a storm. "Is that true, Evelyn?" Margaret's voice drips with false concern. Eve stands slowly, using her cane for effect. "Yes, it's true. I killed a man." She pauses, letting the words hang in the air. "He was trafficking children. He pulled a gun on my partner. I took the shot that saved 3 lives that night." She looks Richard dead in the eye. "It was ruled justified, unlike what you did." Richard's smile falters. "What are you talking about?" "Marcus Williams, 1997. You sold him out for cash and immunity. He took 3 bullets because of you." Eve steps closer, dropping the act, standing straight without the cane. "And you've been selling people out ever since. Maya, Sophia, your own unborn child, all just pawns in your greedy little game." Richard's face goes red. "You're insane. A bitter old woman making up lies." "Am I?" Eve pulls out her phone. "Then why did you tell Sophia last week that you'd abandon her the moment the baby was born? Why did you tell your mother you were going to frame Maya for your money laundering scheme?" Her voice rises. "Why did you tell your lawyer you planned to cut me out completely once you had control of Maya's assets?" "I never said those things." Richard's voice cracks. "Oh, but you did." Eve hits play on her phone. Richard's voice fills the room. Crystal clear. Damning. Talking about offshore accounts. About manipulating Maya. About using Sophia. About destroying anyone who got in his way. The room goes silent except for the recording. When it ends, Richard is white as a sheet. Gotcha, you slimy weasel. Eve's smile is sharp, victorious. Maya stands up, her voice shaking but strong. I want a divorce. I want full custody. And I never want to see any of you again. She looks at Margaret, at the shocked relatives, at the society friends. You all knew. You all watched him destroy me and you did nothing. You're just as guilty as he is. Richard snaps. He grabs his keys and runs for the door. Eve follows, moving faster than anyone expected. She's out the door and in her car before he reaches his BMW. She backs her Honda right into his path, blocking the driveway. FBI agents emerge from unmarked cars parked on the street. Badges out, guns drawn. Frank Russo leads them, his face grim and professional. Richard Benson, you're under arrest for money laundering, fraud, conspiracy, and witness intimidation. Frank reads him his rights as agents cuff him. Richard struggles, screaming about lawyers and connections, but it's over. Inside the mansion, Margaret collapses into a chair, her perfect composure shattered. Sophia walks over to Maya, her eyes full of tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was stupid and selfish and I hurt you. Sophia's voice breaks. He used me too, made me think I was special, that we were building something real. Maya looks at her half-sister for a long moment. Then she nods. We both survived him. That's something. Eve stands in the doorway, watching the FBI agents search the house, load boxes of evidence into their vans. She feels Maya's hand slip into hers. Then, Jamie's small hand taking the other. We women rebuild from ashes. Eve says it loud enough for everyone to hear. We rise from ruins. We survive what was meant to destroy us. She looks down at her daughter and grandson, and we soar higher than anyone thought possible. The cameras capture it all. Every word, every moment. Justice served not just in courtrooms, but in the strength of 3 generations standing together. The storm has passed, and they're still standing. The courtroom is packed 6 months later. Eve sits in the front row beside Maya, their hands clasped together. Richard stands before the judge in an orange jumpsuit, his perfect hair disheveled, his confident smile long gone. The judge reads the verdict without emotion. Richard Benson, you have been found guilty on 18 counts of money laundering, fraud, conspiracy, and witness tampering. The gavel comes down. 15 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for the first 10. Richard's mother sobs in the back row, but it's not the sob of a grieving parent. It's the sob of someone watching their empire crumble to dust. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarm, but Eve and Maya walk past them without a word. They have nothing to prove to anyone anymore. Margaret Benson's fall is even more spectacular than Richard's arrest. The society pages that once celebrated her charity galas now dissect her scandals. Her friends stop returning calls. The country club revokes her membership. The foundation board votes her out unanimously. She's seen one last time at her Connecticut mansion, movers hauling away furniture to pay legal fees and restitution. The estate goes up for auction. Everything she built on the backs of manipulation and cruelty, scattered to the wind. Sophia disappears entirely. She moves to California before the baby is born, cutting all ties with the Benson family. She sends Maya one letter, just 2 words, I'm sorry. Maya doesn't respond, but she doesn't throw it away either. Some wounds need time to heal. The FBI seizes all of Richard's assets. Offshore accounts, shell companies, the Bronx properties purchased with laundered money. It takes 3 months to untangle the web he wove. When it's done, $12 million is recovered and redistributed. Maya receives back everything Richard stole. Her trust fund, her business shares, her dignity. But more than that, she receives something she thought she lost forever. Her freedom. Eve's voiceover plays over a montage of rebuilding. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's resurrection. Watching someone you love rise from the ashes stronger than before. That's the real victory. Maya files for divorce. The papers go through unopposed. Richard's lawyer advises him not to fight. He's already lost everything else. Why lose what little dignity he has left? 6 months after the trial, Maya opens a new business, a nonprofit that helps women escape toxic relationships. Eve co-signs the loan, helps set up the office in Brooklyn, works the phone lines twice a week, listening to stories that sound too much like her own daughters. On opening day, Maya cuts the ribbon with Jamie by her side. The kid is 8 now, thriving in therapy, his smile genuine again. He doesn't ask about his father anymore. Some absences are blessings. The office walls are covered with photos. Maya and Eve, Jamie and his grandmother, women who survived and rebuilt, black faces, brown faces, faces that refuse to be erased. One afternoon, Eve receives an unexpected visitor, an FBI deputy director she worked with decades ago. He carries a small box under his arm. "Agent Thompson, it's been too long." He shakes her hand formally. "We wanted to recognize your work on the Benson case. But more than that, we wanted to acknowledge something we should have acknowledged 25 years ago." He opens the box. Inside is a medal, the FBI star for exceptional bravery and meritorious service, for the 1997 case, for Marcus, for the lives she saved that Richard tried to destroy. Eve's eyes well up. She thought she'd made peace with that chapter. Turns out recognition still matters. That evening, she brings the medal to Maya's apartment. They open a bottle of wine. The good stuff, not the $35 corner store kind. Maya raises her glass. "To us, survivors. Fierce, black, and absolutely unbreakable." Eve clinks her glass against her daughter's. The sound rings clear and true. To women who refuse to stay down. To families built on strength, not blood. To second chances and new beginnings. They drink, they laugh, they cry a little, and for the first time in years, the weight on both their shoulders feels lighter. A month later, Eve's having coffee with Frank Russo. It's become a weekly thing. Coffee turns into lunch. Lunch turns into dinner. Dinner turns into Frank showing up at her door with flowers and that sheepish grin old men get when they're trying to be romantic. "You know this is ridiculous, right?" Eve says, taking the flowers. "We're in our 70s. Retirement's looking up. Frank kisses her cheek. "Spies need love too." Eve laughs. "The real kind. The kind that comes from deep in the chest. Maybe they do." On a Sunday in late spring, the whole family gathers in Central Park. Eve, Maya, Jamie, Lorraine from next door, Frank with his terrible dad jokes. They spread blankets on the grass, eat sandwiches and fruit. Watch Jamie chase pigeons with the fearless joy only kids have. Eve lies back on the blanket, staring up at the sky through the trees. The sun filters through the leaves, warm on her face. She thinks about everything that happened, everything she almost lost, everything she fought to save. Maya lies down beside her. "What are you thinking about, Mom?" "Justice," Eve says simply. "Not the courtroom kind, the real kind. The kind where you take back what was stolen and build something better in its place." Maya smiles. "We did that, didn't we?" "We did, baby girl. We absolutely did." That night, walking home through Queens, Eve feels something she hasn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of conflict. The presence of purpose fulfilled. Her voiceover plays one last time over the city lights. "In this city, you don't get even. You get ahead. You survive. You rebuild. You rise. And you make damn sure the next generation knows they can too." That's the Thompson legacy. Not money, not status, strength. The kind that runs in our veins and never runs out. She walks with her head high, her stride confident. A 65-year-old black woman who took on an empire and won. Not because she was fearless, but because fear never stopped her. The camera pulls back. Wide shot of Eve disappearing into the Brooklyn night. The city that raised her. The streets that taught her, the home she fought to protect. Fade to black. But the story doesn't end. Stories like this never really end. They echo forward through daughters and granddaughters and every woman who refuses to be silenced. Eve Thompson's story is just beginning, and this time she's writing it on her own terms.